afternoon. We are elated to commence with another captivating session on connecting the dots. First and foremost, we extend our gratitude to our esteemed speakers for their participation in this panel discussion. Mr. Sahil Nair, HR leader and influencer, Ms. Harini Krishnan, Global Head DEI and Culture at 247.ai India, and Mr. Vivekanand Kadukuntla, leading learning lead at Pega. A warm welcome to all. The gig economy is transforming traditional employment by offering flexibility but reducing job security and benefits. Businesses benefit from lower cost and access to diverse talent yet face workforce instability. As work as work models evolve, a balance between flexibility and worker protection is crucial for a sustainable future. Our esteemed panelists will be sharing their views on this insightful topic, gig economy and its impact on traditional employment. HRAI welcomes you all to this session on connecting the dots. To know more about HRA and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. I now take the privilege to introduce our moderator for this session, Mr. Vivekanand Kadukuntla, Learning Lead at Pegasystems. Vivek is a distinguished professional in the field of learning and development. He currently serves as the Learning Lead at Pegasystems, where he designs and implements innovative learning programs across multiple regions and business units. With about 23 years of experience spread across organizations such as Nova Solutions, CA, Cognizant, NGAHR, and Prolifix. He is passionate about helping individuals and organizations reach their full potential through continuous learning. Vivek recently completed the prestigious Future CHRO program at the Indian School of Business, which has further enhanced his strategic HR leadership capabilities. Vivek holds several certifications, including MBTI, Thomas Assessments, PPA, Predictive Index, and ProSci Change Management. His expertise in leveraging the latest learning technologies and methodologies has enabled him to create engaging and impactful learning experiences for employees. He has also started and served as the president of a Toastmasters club in his previous organization, where he honed his leadership and communication skills. Vivek's commitment to creating a culture of continuous learning and his ability to measure the impact of training initiatives makes him a valuable asset to an organization. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Now, without wasting much time, I hand over the platform to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Faisal, for the warm welcome. Really appreciate starting the note on a very, warm, hot afternoon. I'm connecting from Hyderabad, so it's definitely a very hot weather here. And connecting the dots, let's go ahead and explore what the topic is for today. But before we do that, just a quick thanks to the HR Association of India for organizing this event and inviting me to moderate this conversation. It's definitely a pleasure to be here today, along with the other two esteemed speakers, Harini and Sahil. Let me introduce Harini first. With over a decade and a half experience in human resources, spanning from hiring, learning and development to training, Harini is a passionate recruiter at heart who has been instrumental in mapping super niche talent for impactful technological roles across industries. She is an IIM alumna and a computer science engineer. As a certified leadership hiring expert and mentor, she is passionate about empowering others. She actively supports the LGBTQ plus community, is an advocate for women's empowerment, and champions the corporate social responsibility and giving back to the society. Harini is a self-proclaimed bookworm, a voracious reader, nature lover, and inclusion catalyst. In her current role, she leads the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Culture Charter at 247.ai globally. She is a new plant parent and a wrestling supermom to her teen son. Welcome to the conversation and the panel discussion, Harini. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you, Team HRAI.
Let me introduce Sahil Nair as well. When I first saw his name, I was very excited to see the H and the R in capitals. So how close somebody can be to internalize the overall human resources component. He's a HR thought leader and influencer. He was awarded the coveted Top HR Voice Award on LinkedIn, a strong testimony to his commitment to the HR and L&D fraternity across the country. He is a certified MBTI and NLP practitioner, happiness coach, a regular columnist, and a visiting faculty at leading business schools across the country. Being a certified design thinker, he loves flirting with ideas as he designs prototypes to redefine human experiences. He is a social media influencer and has close to 75,000 followers on LinkedIn. And off late, he has been learning the art of podcasting. Do check out his YouTube channel, his radio show on Spotify, and definitely show some love. The like, follow, share, whatever is the required, aspect on each of those platforms. Definitely go ahead and do that. Welcome to the conversation, Sahil. It's a pleasure to have you too.
Thank you so much, Vivek, and thank you, Team HRAI, and of course, looking forward to this conversation and learning from all of you. Thank you.
So now let's get into the topic for today, the gig economy and its impact on the traditional employment. When we talk about gig economy, there are a couple of things that definitely strike. It has rapidly evolved, reshaping the overall landscape of work and the regular or traditional employment. It definitely offers the flexibility and autonomy for workers. So it's unprecedented, I believe. Everybody gets to decide on what they want to do. It gives them the control to manage their careers in a way that were kind of previously unimaginable. It has to be an organization-wide policy otherwise. But however, I would say there are also some challenges that were introduced as part of the transition, particularly in terms of job security, benefits, and career progression as well. So in today's discussion, we will explore the multifaceted nature of the gig economy. We'll examine some of its effects on the workplace culture, the employee well-being, as well as the organizational strategies. How can we blend that with the traditional workforce as well? And if possible, we'll also get into the understanding of role of technology, perhaps AI and automation too, because any conversation without AI is not deemed as a valid conversation, at least for the last year or so. And how this, in a way, shapes the gig economy and its future trajectory as well. So our goal for today's conversation primarily is to gain an understanding, maybe a deeper understanding of how this entire gig economy can coexist with the traditional employment models. Because this is going to stay, but that is going to come. But how do we find that balance and see if they can coexist? And also, what steps can we take to ensure that both the gig workers as well as the traditional employees can thrive in this evolving landscape as well? So that's the overall context or the objective of our conversation today. But with that context, let's begin our conversation. And maybe I'll start with you, Harini, one of the first questions. The gig economy has brought significant changes to the overall workplace culture, emphasizing the flexibility and the autonomy piece part of it. However, these changes also raise questions about job satisfaction as well as career progression. So, Harini, if you could share your thoughts on this transformation, how does that work? What is it the current situation right now? And how has that change happened?
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivek, for that question. Before I begin, I'd like to say that everything that I'm sharing here is from an individual capacity and not as a representative of my organization. So these thoughts are personal to what I believe in and what I've seen out of my experience in the industry. So gig is the future of work, Vivek, according to me. And I think that's going to rule the world like how AI has already begun, right? So while it gives from a job satisfaction standpoint, if I have to think, I think it's pretty much the flexibility that people are looking for today. Work-life balance has been, seeing so much of importance post-COVID that people clearly know that they don't want to be doing 12 hours. They don't want to be 4 hours on the road. So gig economy is something that will be able to bring that flexibility. It will be able to bring that freedom for people to take on jobs or careers. And the other thing I would like to say is it could also be the diversification of skill that one gets an opportunity to, right? So that can also give one an immense job satisfaction while they are going in this direction. And personally, for the entire gamut of the ecosystem who thrive or probably benefit out of the gig workers or the economy is pretty much going to be the diversity this is going to bring, the innovation that's going to be brought in through this diverse group of talent. I think that's going to be a huge win for all of us. And then, of course, it's going to already the world is small enough because of technology. And definitely because of collaboration beyond boundaries, it's going to be really a great platform for everyone across the world together to come together and share all that knowledge, skills, and expertise required, and not to be bound by something that's long standing. So that's what I feel this could do. Again, like you asked, from a challenges standpoint, we know it for sure at the back of our head. You don't have a regular income, you don't have benefits that are going to back you up. And also stuff like, coaching and mentoring, which we take so closely to our, hearts and careers in the path of growing, right? So these could be some challenges. But not denying the amount of networking opportunities this is going to bring about for people in this economy or into gig working. And I think that's also going to be another big win for people. Of course, it has both pros and cons, but like you started off the conversation, it's very important how we find a balance by bringing in, policies or strategies that can make work this better. Thank you.
Thank you, Harini. Thanks a lot for that response. Yeah, I do think that attaining a balance is something important. Anything that is transformational is welcome, but a very quick transformation can throw that balance out, which can make the traditional employment model in a way very unstable as well. And you brought out one important keyword that I wanted to dig a little deeper about income. But before we go there, Sahil, is there anything that you would like to add? How has this overall gig economy changed the workplace culture, and what implications do we have in terms of job satisfaction or career progression that we can talk about?
Sure. Thanks, Vivek. So again, I'm going to be sharing this in my personal capacity basis, what I've seen and my experience thus far. It's important for us to break this down because it's quite a loaded question, the first one from your side, right? And I think when you look at job satisfaction or career progression, let's take them one by one. To my mind, job satisfaction has three key components. The first is engagement. The second is what kind of challenges that keep you challenged on the job, the work per se. And the third, of course, needless to say, is belongingness, right? Now, if you look at each of these aspects, and of course, there are many more that each one of us can add to this list, but to keep this a focused conversation, I want to stick to these three. When you look at, let's start with belongingness first. You can have people who are full-time employees who also don't feel as if they belong because they're not as connected to the organization. And you may have gig workers who just come in for a short while, perform their gig, and step out. But in those couple of hours or couple of days or couple of months that they commit their time, they feel a great sense of belonging. And that directly impacts their job satisfaction. That directly impacts the fact that they'll prioritize this client or this account over someone else. And at the same time, it impacts their productivity and efficiency. Let's move backward. The second point that I spoke about was challenges. If your job is not challenging, irrespective of how many frills you may have, it's going to be a problem, right? What's the point of flying an amazing airline that has great interiors, amazing service, the most tastiest of food, but on a safety quotient, you know that in the last 3 months, 2 of their aircrafts have crashed. Would you want to fly that airline? You wouldn't, right? So what's the point of going and working at a place where you may have amazing allowances, great food, nice slides in the office, crazy pool tables, PUBG, whatever you have, may you, but the work itself is not challenging. So I think that is a very, very pivotal, simple aspect related to job satisfaction. And if I have to compare this between traditional employment and gig employment gives you the flexibility of flexing challenges in different organizations. So you're looking at different complexities, you're looking at different size of organizations, you're looking at different maturity of that organization in a similar industry. Whereas in a traditional employment, while you may offer challenges, it may be slightly more restrictive to your area of domain or to your department or to your team. And the first point that I spoke about was engagement. And I think engagement is directly proportional to job satisfaction. In a multi-generational workforce, we need to understand that engagement for someone in their 20s versus 30s versus 40s versus 50s versus 60s and 70s, who may be senior advisors or council members, is very different. And therefore, do we understand how the Uberization of talent is allowing us to drive job satisfaction through different engagement levers? This is as far as job satisfaction is concerned. Let's look at career progression. And I'm going to keep this slightly quick because I know we have a lot of more questions that we want to address. Career progression, to my mind, has two aspects. One is obviously you look at vertical growth, and you keep looking at promotions and growth and moving from one level to another, hierarchy, team leader, head of department, so on and so forth. But also, I think horizontal growth is very important. It's not just about the depth that you get into, but it's also the breadth. And as you get into the breadth, as you pivot yourself, as you move ahead in your career, are you able to be agile enough to play different roles? These could be sub roles within a function. Let's say you're an HR professional. You may have done talent acquisition. Can you do comp and ben? Can you do performance? Can you look at total rewards? Can you look at the entire gamut of OD, right? Or have you just been a TA person all your life? And therefore, the growth then also manifests, or career progression is not just about more money or better titles or fancier cabins, but career progression is also about the breadth and the depth of your experience. And this works very differently for gig workers versus traditional employment. Of course, needless to say that a gig worker will not have an intrinsic motivation for hierarchy, but more so in terms of the breadth of experience, the kind of clients they've worked with, the demographics, the maturity, the challenges, and so on and so forth. So sorry, Vivek, long answer, but since the question was so important, I thought I should get into the finer nuances as well.
Thank you, Sahil. That's very important. And I like the airline analogy that you're talking about, from a job satisfaction point of view, the engagement, the challenges, and the belongingness part of it. And coming to career progression, I can't help but think about the upskilling and reskilling part of it to ensure that the horizontal growth kind of can be appreciated as well as enjoyed from a career point of view. So that kind of brings me to another question. Maybe Harini, we'll start that with you. The professional upskilling and the lifelong learning that we typically talk about. How do you think this can help the workers or the employees transition between the traditional employment, where Sahil was talking about, hierarchies and the promotions and the different grades and levels, versus the gig work, where they decide what to do, when to do, and how much of work to do, and what values that they typically derive from a conversation or a work like that as well. So how will this help transition people from one model to another model, perhaps?
Yeah, that's a important, interesting question, Vivek, because if we know that we are heading in that direction, then it's very important to get your so to say tools right. So learning, and especially continuous learning, is important because we firstly say life is a journey of learning in itself. But when you come to particular domain or an industry which supports the transition of a full-time model to gig model, I think it's more so important to keep you relevant, and that can only happen if you are in a phase of continuous learning. And I think because in a gig working model or gig workers, you have options to diversify your skills and have various things to learn. It just makes it more easier for them to give their expertise, or maybe make them more relevant in various fields and industries, so to say. But when you look at a traditional model, like Sahil was saying, it has to go through a hierarchy. It has to go through level 1 to level X, and then that you've completed these modules, or you have these mandatory trainings, or that you're upskilling because you want to go to +1 level, and then it has to happen in that set period. Of course, there are exceptions where you have your high pots who can just jump a level or two. But otherwise, it's going to take the course of the time to reach where you want to be. But on the flip side, the gig just simply allows you opportunities to be able to look at multiple facets of industries, because you are able to learn through all of these industries. And continuous learning is definitely going to aid that. It's also going to be an addition because of the networking that I spoke earlier, right? The opportunities that you have to, you get to meet different people, different industries, the diversity of thoughts you're going to have. And that networking is also going to be a part of your continuous learning journey, which will help you get where you want to be. Of course, backed by technology as well, because like you said, if you're not mentioning AI, then perhaps the conversation is rendered relevant in today's date. So these are going to definitely aid the transition from, a traditional way to a more gig work. One more thing that I personally think will be very important from a learning standpoint, and it'll be really crucial, is the kind of management that a gig worker will get from the angle of financial management, and perhaps entrepreneurial skills, right? Because when they are out on their own, they get to do so many things on their own, or they are rather forced to do. So having a great financial acumen and being that business mind, like, will perhaps automatically come. And that also happens during this learning. So pretty much with all these strategies and skills, I think it will equip the transition with better knowledge, with better flexibility, and also give the necessary confidence to thrive in this changing economy. That's what I feel.
Wonderful. Thank you for that insight, Harini. And I was thinking about a platform, Upwork, and yesterday I was watching one of a few months old episode from Shark Tank. They started an animation organization through Upwork, and they are a very big organization now. They came to pitch their services and then get some investment, etc. So it kind of shows how much they enjoy and what is the platform that they typically have. But AI and automation, I do believe that they significantly influence the overall growth as part of that gig economy. Upwork or TaskRabbit kind of platforms provide that algorithms to optimize the job assignments. They predict the demand. They ensure the timely delivery of the services. So the person who's contributing versus person who's requesting the services are also kind of taking value out of that as well. But as you rightly said, organizations must invest in upskilling and reskilling their workforce to ensure that that doesn't remain as a gap in a traditional employment context as well. So thank you very much for that. I'll move to Sahil now. I know one word that we talked about was the income related element as part of the gig work economy, or gig work employment, let's say. So Sahil, how do you think effects like unstable income or psychological or social effects will be in comparison to the traditional employment for a gig worker?
I think that's a very important point that you touched upon, Vivek, because a lot of people get very enamored by the gig working because they say, you know what, this is fantastic and it offers me flexibility and I can do things on my own time. And it's actually so nice because today I'm working on one project, tomorrow I'm working on another. And at times we also get very flawed by the kind of income that they may make. But the key word in that entire equation is consistency. right? You may do one gig today that may give you a couple of lakhs, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or day after or a month later. And therefore, while, and I don't want to stereotype generations here, but I think the whole social fabric of our society, of having a stable job, having a regular income, and saving, today is experiencing a massive change. Today, we are seeing where so many layoffs are happening and where people want to leave their jobs because they find it toxic without worrying where is the next income going to come from. And I think whether this is traditional employment or gig working, it has a lot to do with the so-called definition of entitlement and inheritance. Earlier inheritance was minimal, and therefore everybody had to work hard to build their lifetime. Today, because access to money and multiplication of money, leave alone the last 1 year where everybody's portfolio has been going down. But prior to that, we have seen people make exponential amount of money if they've invested just about right. Now, because of this extra disposable income, a lot of people are getting flawed by the flamboyance of gig working because they have a backup. But someone who doesn't have a backup, someone who has an EMI to pay, someone who actually has liabilities or fixed expenses every month, will still think 10 times before looking at an opportunity like this, would rather prefer a traditional full-time employment. Number two, so this is about how the social fabric of the society is playing out. Number two, I think as far as the government is concerned and the government's assistance to the gig economy is concerned, I think still, whether it is social security, whether it is our laws that are looking at provident fund for full-time employment, I think there is very little that happens in the space of gig economy. And a lot more can be done to encourage more gig workers from a social security perspective. And third, I think that we need to look at this entire paradigm not just from a monetary aspect, but also from an aspect in terms of mental stability. Because many a times we see people, and you've seen this across with film stars who have been at the peak of their career and didn't have dates and very politely had to refuse certain directors or producers, to those same film stars a couple of years later not having anyone signing them, and they had to reduce their rates. They had to go back to directors and say, please, can you give me a role? I am tired sitting at home. I have no work. It is actually breaking me down. So I think we haven't emphasized enough on the mental stigma that hits people so hard because they are talented, they are competent, but for whatever reason, they're not getting work. And this is not just to the film industry, this is to a lot of people across industries who are in the gig space, because some people may be brilliant at what they do, but may not be very good at networking, may not be very good at business development, and therefore getting their next gig in an environment where perception precedes reality, and you actually have to go there and earn your next bread and bring food on the table is never easy.
Thank you, Sahil. In fact, let me pick on that last point that you talked about, which is the talented and competent workforce that we're talking about. When somebody chooses to do gig work, let's say, I know consistency can be a problem, but do you see any value in integrating these gig workers into a traditional workforce? Are there any strategies that businesses should adapt to ensure that we integrate gig workers into the regular workforce without undermining the stability of the full-time employment? Is there a possibility for us to do that?
Sure. I think, Vivek, that's a brilliant follow-up question because it actually integrates into my last piece, and I'll maybe pick from there. I think forward-looking organizations are doing two things in my experience. Number one, their intent is very clear that we want to leverage the gig workforce because it just makes business sense. Today, when I am in a situation where a certain business is at its peak It is seasonal. It is doing very well. I need more manpower. I need no more workforce. I had naturally go to the gig economy because I have people who can be plug and play because they understand the ecosystem, they understand the job, they're good at what they do. I need them for a short time. I bring them on. I'm suddenly in a growth phase where I need to hire a lot of people. I get a lot of sourcers and recruiters on. I'm in a phase where I know that the next couple of months are going to be Diwali or Christmas or festive times. And I am an e-commerce company, and I know that a lot of people are going to shop. To ensure that I service the demand, I have a lot of gig workers. So you name the industry and you have it out there. Hotel industry, hospitality, weekends are a lot more busier than weekdays. You don't need to have full-time people, fixed cost, you bring in gig. So there's a lot of opportunity available. And let me draw another analogy where I think most people get it wrong. And this is a slightly sensitive one. So therefore, I think we should bring in the sensitivity to this conversation as well. When people want to hire someone, let's say PWD, right? Persons with disabilities, or you want to hire people from the LGBTIQ community into your workforce. And I'll draw this analogy back to the gig working. You may have the right intent, but the question is, do you have the right mindset and the right infrastructure? I have the intent to have people with disabilities work for me. But do I have the right mindset? When I say I don't mean I mean the entire leadership, the entire managerial workforce. Have I sensitized people enough to say that if you are getting someone on your team who needs to work with Braille, do you have that software on your computer for that person? Or you're just going to get the person in and say, oh, I'll give you a buddy and the buddy will help you out. Doesn't work. So do you have the mindset and do you have the infrastructure? Similarly, getting gig workers is amazing because you get a pair of hands, you get a couple of brains, they come in. But when they come in, is your mindset and is your infrastructure enabling them to grow or making them feel that they're an outcast or they've just come for a month or, they're just somewhere in the whole scheme of things and they're not feeling as if they belong or they are valued, right? And I think if we can work on intent, if we can work on mindset, and if we can work on infrastructure, which includes policies, procedures, equality, whether it is pay, whether it is non-pay, whether it is involving them on parties, whether it is involving them on the goodies that you give out, whether it is small, simple gestures of seating. I think many a times basic thing like even seating is ignored because, okay, you can sit anywhere. But the moment that person is distant and the rest of the team is sitting together, psychologically, the person is going to feel distant and you don't want that. So I'm saying from the smallest of things to the largest of things, intent, mindset, and infrastructure with policies are very important to ensure that strategies are formulated to ensure that gig workers can work alongside traditional employment and not treated as either an add-on on top that, oh my God, this guy's come to sit on my head and work for 3 months, or treated as, oh my God, this person's just available. If you want to utilize him or her, you can take their services. They're treated equal. So these are some of my thoughts, Vivek.
Thank you,
And
Sahil.
Vivek, if I may add my perspective to what Sahil was saying, two things actually. One is very, very rightly said by Sahil that the sense of belonging and inclusion that we are talking about day in and day out, at least now for the last decade or so, is so crucial in trying to find that balance. So one question to organizations who want to kind of bring in gig talent as a part of their regular workforce is about how are we going to do the cultural alignment or a cultural fitment, right? Right from the identification of the talent, the resource, are we going to do, a focused kind of intervention or an induction which pretty much takes the talent through the culture of the organization? And even if they're going to do like a project-based, delivery, do we think that cultural alignment is truly important? The other question, and I'm sure it's a debatable one too, and I don't want to get in there, but I want to put this thought here because when we talk about employee loyalty, right, how are we going to address that? Are we really saying that gig economy is going to continue to show that behavior or a trait that we expect from a traditional worker? If not, then how are you going to manage your data, your confidentiality, and how can you give away that to a gig worker? Trusting that everything is going to be fine, and sometimes they may not be bound by certain laws or policies that usually apply for a full-time worker. So that's one perspective that I wanted to bring just for us to think about. And the other equally opposite perspective is that we're working with multi-generational workforce today, right? And I think two extremes. That's one is the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, the way they think, and the boomers, the way they think are almost exactly the opposite. And just to call out something from my own real life experience, my son, who's a teenager, he cannot absolutely relate to a full-time job. So when he sees me, working 10 to 12 hours, he's like, what are you doing? I don't want to work. And he says, no, Mama, I don't want to be sitting in front of the laptop. I don't want to be taking calls like this. And then I asked him one day, what's that you want to do? He said, I want to be a gamer. I want to be a YouTuber. And I'll do this. And then I will travel. I will do this. And I was like, are you serious? And then, you realize that, the Gen Z or the Gen Alpha today, they cannot relate to something such as being confined to one workplace or being confined to an 8-hour or a 12-hour job or being told what to do. So I'm thinking the direction that we are going, it's going to be really interesting to see how we are going to, work with all this multi-generational workforce, plus your amalgamation of gig and traditional. I think it's going to be an awesome run in the years to come and a lot of challenges for HR folks.
Definitely. Thank you, Harini, for jumping in and adding that additional perspective. But let's continue that conversation. Even Sahil brought it up as well. Multiple industries, depending on the surge or depending on the demand, we tend to bring in gig and we leverage where it is required. How do you think this gig economy and the traditional employment can coexist in certain industries like the healthcare, education, and finance without compromising the service quality and the employee rights, let's say? Is there a way for us to think towards that possibility?
I think definitely, yes, it is going to be a complex challenge, but it definitely can be managed with the right set of policies and, strategies that Sahil was also referring to, right? Like, when we are looking at the traditional employment in certain industries, like you said, without, healthcare, education, and, finance and banking and things like that. Of course, I think these are some industries which definitely can find a balance having both. Sahil also spoke in detail about how you're employing gig workers for short-time projects, and when you are in a peak season, and even education field for that matter, right? Nowadays you see so much of online tutoring during exam times, and all those add on to your full-time, your traditional employment and gig economy. We have schools who now have counselors who come on and off as a part of, their consulting. You have specialists who come in to, probably teach IIT JEE or, specialized mathematics or advanced, physics and all of that. And even in healthcare, today you see there are so many support staff, your nursing staff, and all of them who can just come in and fill those hours when you have peak and things like that. Telemedicine, for that matter, your Practo and things like that. So much of online consultation that happens today. Totally, it blends with your traditional and gig economy. You could have the consultant working full-time in a hospital, yet can take off like 3 or 4 consultations on their phones, right? So yeah, when we look at traditional employment, it perhaps requires more continuous kind of care or continuous training or developing a deep expertise to one group or a specific industry or a knowledge. Then perhaps like we're doing today, that stands good. But when we are looking at consulting, when you're looking at supporting during high times, high demand times, and when we're looking at something that will allow you to pursue your passion along with making some money. I think gig economy will help, and definitely building a balance is not going to be easy, but it's definitely possible. Um, and also here, I wanted to just talk about one thing which Sahil touched on about the income and of the consistency of getting paid and all of that, right? Because the Gen Zs, I would like to speak in particular, they already come with so much of a backup that they really don't feel that money is everything. So, they would just be willing to do gig economy or sorry, gig work as much as they would like to, and then work from maybe Bhutan or from Thailand or anywhere, and then enjoy their vacation and do this. And then they're also not focused on money at times, is what I feel. Of course, you have certain set who are focused about building great careers, but they are very clear about what they want in life. They know that this is what I want, this is my satisfaction, this is my happiness, and this is what gives me peace. I'm okay to do that. And if this is what I'm going to get paid, I'm fine. Would you want to, instead of paying me, do you want to just sponsor a trip to this place? I'm fine. It's like barter system, going back to the roots. You're seeing that today. And it's definitely possible. So just to summarize this, I think with flexible working options and also collaboration, having to work with gig working workers, collaborating with them, aiding technology, using technology to the maximum, checking on the cultural fitment, setting those expectations right, continuous learning, training, coaching and mentoring wherever possible, having inclusive policies which also protect rights, and do provide benefits if possible for gig workers. I think some thought needs to go in, but it's definitely possible that a future of traditional and gig economy going hand in hand.
Thank you, Harini. Thanks a lot. In fact, let me pick a couple of aspects that you mentioned and ask Sahil a question. As Harini was talking about, Sahil, income is probably not the main thing or the only thing that gig workers look forward to. The flexibility, the passion, like being an influencer for that matter, is something that they really enjoy and that they're looking forward to. And even benefits as a keyword came up. So, how do you think the gig workers perceive job security and benefits in comparison to the traditional employees? What are the similarities or what are the differentiators which can really make the coexistence work if we want to move in that direction?
I think, Vivek, to do justice to your question, I think it's important that we also classify gig workers, right? When you look at gig workers, you would have natives, someone like Harani's son, right, who is born in the 90s or the 2000s and is thinking of getting into gig working or becoming a YouTuber or an influencer right here, right now, right? Versus someone who was born in the 70s or the 80s who has done a job or worked in a family business or done a startup and now wants to become a gig worker. To someone born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, who has essentially worked for a period of 20, 30 years and either has lost their job in COVID times or has taken premature retirement or has just lost an opportunity and has been forced to become a gig worker. I think each one is going to look at the aspect of benefits very differently. Today, Gen Z is going to say, hey, are you going to pay me in Bitcoin? Now, the question is, are you even ready? Right? Do you have an infrastructure that allows you to pay a Gen Z who's come and solved a problem which 50,000 people in your company were not able to solve because they didn't have the relevance or the competency or the skill set. But this 21-year-old came in and in half an hour solved that problem, right? And therefore is saying, you know what, I don't want to take cash, I don't want check, I want a Bitcoin. It's a challenge. Maybe it's not happening in a very rampant manner today, but 10 years later, when we watch this video, maybe we'll smile and say, yeah, you know what, today even I'm taking Bitcoin, right? So that's the way it works. That's one. Second is people who've really worked for 10, 20 years and then have moved in. I think that's the generation which I call as the sandwich generation. It's a generation that has old parents in their 70s, in their 80s, in their late 60s, and has young children as well. And because they've either lost their job in COVID or otherwise, for them, the biggest hit today is that spend on insurance has gone up by 40% year on year. Incredible, right? So, because they don't have any social security, because health is center stage, because cost on health insurance has gone up by 30 to 40%, they are looking out for that one place where, hey, you know what? Can I get some kind of backing or health cover or insurance cover or pre-existing illness or whatever may be the complication or a terminal illness, so on and so forth. And if you look at the senior generation, right, the ones born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, essentially, or 60s, who've now lived a good life, worked for almost 3 to 4 decades, and now trying to either offer their time or service, they've made their money. What they're really looking out for is not more money. And I'm generalizing here. There are a lot of people who are very ambitious and want a lot of money even at that age. I don't know who they want to leave it for. Maybe they want to donate it to charity, but that's a different question by itself. But I'm saying for them, the most important aspect, as you said and touched upon, is are they valued? Are they respected? Is their time respected? Are they given the right protocols when they are invited for an event, so on and so forth? Because they want to be in that space. And even if there is a remuneration, an honorarium, whatever, is it done in a dignified manner? Is it done respectfully? And I think every generation looks at it very differently. Especially there, the whole purpose and the cause becomes very important. So they're going to see that is your organization an organization that's contributing to the planet? Is it contributing to a social cause? Maybe they would like you to contribute a certain part of the entitlements to a certain cause or a certain ESG objective, so on and so forth. So I think summarizing, looking at total rewards for the gig workers versus traditional, one has to be disruptive. Two, one size will not fit all because you have natives who are gig workers and you also have adopters who have become gig workers. And three, you need to understand what is the primary need of that gig worker and therefore work and align your policies to really support that primary need, because it's not a one-time gig, but it's an opportunity to keep coming back again and again and again.
Thank you, Sahil. And hopefully the conversation that we all talk about from an AI point of view, right? A lot of personalization is possible right now without the heavy investment of effort and time to craft those policies. So if we understand the context of somebody and what they really value, maybe there are platforms that will come up which will help us to personalize and then please everyone, or make an environment, the ESG components that we talked about, part of the benefits package. Because if they value something and if there is something on the table for us to offer, I think we should definitely mix and match to do that. We do have some live participants on the call, of course. There is one question we received in the chat, and it says, how does the gig economy impact mental health and work-life balance compared to traditional jobs? If either of you would like to answer or share your opinion on how the mental health, work-life balance related aspects are different, that would be welcome.
Sure. I did touch upon that earlier on when I was talking about from moving from one gig to another and the space and time available in between and how it plays on mental health. But Harini would love to hear your thoughts, or even Vivek, even you would love to hear from you as well, from your experience, if anything you would like to share, because my thoughts around mental health very clearly are, what is the space of the individual? What is the backup that the person has? And what is the mindset? Is it positive? Is it anxious? Because you don't know where your next gig is going to come from. And that could play. Obviously, within the gig workers, there is a huge concept of FOMO. And I can tell you this, speaking to a lot of friends, if there is one person doing a gig somewhere and the other person has not got invited or not got, there is massive FOMO again among gig workers, generalizing. Of course, some people are very secure But those are some of my added perspectives in addition to what I've shared earlier. But Vivek, Harini, happy to hear both of you.
Yes, Sahil, I would agree with you that it is very individual based as to what is the mind space that they have to deal with these anomalies, so to say. But also, I feel it is to do with even the kind of generations, right? Like today, if you were to speak to a boomer or even a Gen X, right? They will not associate mental health or work-life balance. They don't understand that concept. Whereas if you speak to a Gen Z, the first thing they talk about is ESG, mental health, diversity, and work-life balance. So, it is totally generational and it is also personal in that way. That if a Gen Z feels or if a Gen Alpha feels that, okay, my mental health is more important than anything else, I don't want to get shouted at from my so-called boss or anybody else. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I'm okay to just go in there 2 hours, do this, crack a code, do a design and come back and then chill. And that helps me in my mental health. I'm fine. That helps me in my work-life balance. It's fine. Maybe it works for them. But for someone in a different generation, if they are not working 8 to 10 hours a day, they feel that that's going to take toll on their mental health. They're going to feel that if their calendars are not blocked the entire day, they're going to develop anxiety because they feel that they're not doing anything. They feel that maybe they are less productive because they see an hour gap in their calendar. And it's a fact, and I've experienced this to see, some senior members just not being able to take that time off. Even if you say, even from a neuroscience standpoint, it says that please give your brains and neurons some time to switch. You can always argue that, your context switching can be so great that you can jump from one conversation to another, which is completely different, and still get your brain cells to work and contribute effectively in that conversation. But it's okay even to take that break. Just take a 10-minute break before you jump into a conversation. Sometimes it's not possible for someone who is a boomer or a Gen X because they feel that if their 8 hours is not, busy, or they're not engaged in doing something, they get anxious about it. And it's exactly different from a different generation. So it is one, generational, and two, it is also individual. It's personal to someone how they can deal with these things. What is the rate of their processing, their understanding, the mind space that he spoke about, and things like that.
Wonderful, Harini. And I do agree on that generational part as well, because when I was a kid, anxiety or ADHD weren't out there. I mean, it wasn't awareness problem, or, we didn't do a lot of understanding there. But now we have better understanding, better awareness, and options for us to deal with depending on who needs what, etc. So the generational element and where we are right now is definitely a key point. And not everything is for everybody. So people who get into gig work, for that matter, do have either the backup that you're talking about, Sahil, or the intent to enjoy that more than a traditional full-time job, let's say. And because that's the mindset that they approach the overall task with, they tend to enjoy more, they tend to make it work. That's where the overall passion and giving more than 100% definitely helps them to succeed in what they do. So that's all the set of questions that I had today for our conversation. Let me check with the host to see if there are any questions that are coming in from the audience that I'm unable to see in the chat for any reason.
Thank you, Vivek. I don't think there are any more questions, but we'll give a 2 minutes time in case the participants want to ask any questions in the chat window.
And while we wait for any questions, on a closing note, Harini, and then we'll go to Sahil as well, if there is a 1 minute closing note that you would like to talk about on the overall conversation that we currently had, maybe this is a great opportunity to reiterate some of the aspects.
Sure, Vivek, thank you. I pretty much enjoyed the diverse thoughts from all of us. And like Sahil initially said, that these forums just help us to learn more and learn from each other. So I think that the future of work is going to be a combination of traditional and gig working, and that is definitely going to add value to everything that we do. as a population, as a country, as a world together. It's going to bring people closer. It's going to bring greater collaboration. It's going to give quick turnaround results. It's going to bring a lot of amazing talent that we never thought that exists. Especially again, some Gen Zs and Gen Xs, Gen Alpha today, if you see, they are classified under neurodivergent talent, right? So they pretty much can't sit in a place and focus on anything, or they have sensitivity to sound, to visuals, and so many things like that. But then the kind of problem solving skills and capabilities that they carry can do wonders. And I think gig economy will pretty much help them to contribute to make a more meaningful experiences, not only for themselves, but also for the traditional working workplaces as well. And then it also becomes a responsibility of the organizations of the country, the nation, the world, perhaps, to see how we can bring about a sense of belonging, how we can bring about a sense of protection from an employer from an employee-employer rights standpoint as well, so that there can be mutual, benefit, if for the lack of a better choice of word. At the same time, it also is going to be transformational. It is going to shake the world, but a change is the only constant, and I think that's going to be the way forward. Yeah. We'll look forward and we will see what happens. And perhaps, like Sahil said, if we come back in 10 years, we may be having exactly different conversations. We never know.
We'll have the conversation over crypto. But Sahil, any closing notes from your end?
I think a lot has been said, and I don't want to repeat. I just have one word of caution. I think many a times everything that shines is not gold. While a lot of people may be getting very lured by the gig economy, I think it's very important. It's not for everybody. And therefore, just because traditional employment has been there for a long time doesn't mean that it's bad. So therefore, suit yourself, know yourself well, suit yourself, and only then take the plunge, because we know that times are uncertain. A lot of words have come out, whether it's a VUCA world, it's a Rapt world, it's a Bani world, lovely jargons come and go. But at the end of the day, do what keeps you happy, do what satiates you, do what challenges you, whether it is gig, whether it is non-gig, but be well informed. Don't get lured by anything that looks very fancy. That's the only thing I want to add on, which we haven't touched upon so far.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Harini. Thank you, Sahil, for all the insights and a great engagement throughout the conversation. It was my pleasure to ask a few questions and moderate this conversation. And special thanks to HR Association of India for putting this together. If you're attending live, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And if you're watching the recording, maybe you can connect with us and we'll continue the conversation offline to see how best we can take this forward. Thank you very much. And let me pass it on to Faisal to close this.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek, for your skillful moderation that kept the conversation dynamic and impactful. Our sincere appreciation to Mr. Sahil and Ms. Harini for their invaluable insights. We appreciate your time and effort in making this session a success. Looking forward to more such enriching discussions. For those eager to visit today's insights, the session recording is available on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. A special thanks to our event partners, Geisha, NASSCOM COE, Talpro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local, Ahmedabad, and India for their invaluable support in making this event a success. To learn more about these associations, please refer to the link provided in the chat window. We look forward to welcome you all to our next session on the topic Moonlighting, a Threat or Opportunity on April 3rd, 2025. With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you for being part of this journey. Wishing you a good health, positivity, and success until we meet again. Take care and farewell for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.